Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Tuesday, May 18th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Minnesota game is in 107 days. The game against Michigan in 193 days. Last week, Buckeye Scoop recruiting analyst Marc Givler joined me from the road in the middle of his southern swing. He's back home now and ready to fill you in on the second half of his trip. Marc, last time we spoke, you were in Central Florida after visiting North Carolina and Jacksonville. Where else did you head to after that?
Yeah, I got down to Fort Lauderdale, out to Tampa area, and back up through Georgia before heading home. So got 3 states in total during the trip, and saw every corner of Florida, pretty much.
That's a lot of not that exciting driving all the way up and down the state of Florida a couple times. One of the big-time players you saw down there on the second half of that trip was Richard Young. He's a 2023 running back. With it sounding like the Buckeyes might only take one back in 2022, that could be a pretty big position for them in 2023. What kind of player is Richard Young, and what is his relationship with the OSU staff like right now?
He's the type of player that even if there's some attrition right now, I would not take 2 running backs in 22. I would keep the runway clear for him in 23. He's a potential 5-star guy. I think, I hesitate to rank running backs too highly, but as far as within the context of running backs, he's as good as it gets, pretty much. I mean, he's powerful, he's fast, he's quick, he's intelligent. There's a lot to like there, and he's got a great relationship with Ohio State, a great relationship with Tony Alford, who has been aware of Richard since 8th grade. So, they're in a really good position early on. They're going to get him up here in June for an unofficial visit, which is going to be super important. It's going to be a 2-day visit. I think, right now, I think they're off to a bit of an early lead now. That could, change here in June. He's got a lot of visits set up. He's going to see Alabama. He's going to see Georgia. I believe he's going to see Florida. Basically, the top, 10, 12 programs in the country are all recruiting Richard already. So it's something where I think you get excited if you're an Ohio State fan about where they are right now, but you also realize that everyone's coming after him. He's not deciding soon. And, this round of visits in June, I think, is going to just kind of help him set the table in terms of who the 5 or 6 contenders are going to be for him.
All right, another Florida standout you saw was TJ Shanahan. He is ranked right at number 100 nationally right now for 2023 as an offensive lineman. I mean, I would imagine most of these 2023 guys are really just kind of getting started with figuring out the recruiting thing. Is that the case with him? And where does he project at that next level?
Yeah, he's just getting started as well. I was able to watch the spring game, and so in Florida, you can kind of have a spring game against an opponent. So they actually played a live game. So I got some good stuff coming from him. That'll be up on the site this week. Some video and obviously an interview with him. He plays left tackle for his high school team, which is pretty standard for, if you're a Division I prospect, you generally are going to play tackle for your high school team. I think he's an interior guy, center guard. He's told me that schools are pretty much telling him up and down the line, which is generally center guard is what happens there when they're telling you that. But he's very versatile. I mean, he's got really good feet. He's got good hands. Just just not quite. Probably about 6'2.5", 3, and probably not super long. So he's probably going to have to play in the interior. But he's a tough kid. I mean, he had a couple of really brutal kind of pancakes, and then he really finished his play. So I really like that about him. Great energy to him. Gonna try and sort some recruiting stuff out this summer. He doesn't have anything set officially with Ohio State, but he's working on getting up to Ohio State at some point in June. That's a school he's followed growing up, so they've got a little bit of an in there. Florida State, UCF, schools like that, I think are going to be interesting. Could be tough to beat. I know I just said UCF. People are probably like, what? But he's an Orlando kid, and UCF's, he's got a big family. He's got a big family. There's like 20 people in his house. So it's a close family. And so UCF being there in Orlando, I actually think is gonna have a little bit of pull there. But really tough kid and a guy who really likes Ohio State early on.
Yeah, I mean UCF, I'm making my air quotes here, 2017 national champions, and they've got Gus Malzahn coaching them now. Like, I mean, that is a program that they're not a Power 5 team, but they are about as close to a Power 5 team as you can be without being a Power 5 team. And they might be more of a Power 5 team than some of the members of the Big Ten West and some of the Big Ten's recent additions, for example, not to name any names. Another offensive lineman from Florida to keep an eye on is Clay Whedon. He's from the Tampa area, class of 2023. What should people know about him?
Loves the Buckeyes. Again, that's another video I got. I'm getting up here. Was decked out in his Ohio State stuff. I went to an afternoon workout he had. Going to get up here in June. That's the plan right now. Talking to Coach Stud, talking to Coach Alford a lot, actually. I think tackle body there. Obviously these guys can always play guard, but has a bit more of a prototype tackle body. He's about 6'6", he's about 295. Looks great physically right now. And very, very interested in Ohio State. That's another kid similar to TJ Shanahan who has grown up really liking Ohio State. Now that kind of can go out the window a little bit when you start talking about business decisions and recruiting and making the decision to go a couple, 1,000+ miles away from home. But definitely a guy that they're in on. They've got the attention of right now. And, he's another one that, I think the Florida schools and the SEC schools are not going to just kind of let waltz out of there. But definitely a guy that is worth paying attention to early on.
All right, we're going to stay on the offensive line for Addison Nichols. He's a 2022 offensive lineman out of Georgia. He's ranked just outside the top 100 nationally right now. I mean, you just mentioned the SEC schools letting people waltz out of the South. His list of interested schools is like most of the SEC and also Ohio State. So how tough is it going to be to pull him out of the South?
It's going to be a little bit challenging, but I actually really like where they stand right now. I think, Tennessee, there's so many family ties there. There's a lot of his family's from Knoxville. I believe his mom went to Tennessee. And then, of course, he's not too far from Athens, being in the Atlanta area. So Georgia is going to be a factor as well. I know Florida has been tossed around. I'm not so sure that Florida's in as good of a shape as maybe they were 6 months ago. I think he really likes Ohio State. I think, the interesting thing for me is I think Ohio State's, if not one, they're definitely maybe two right now. And I think if that's the case, without having visited, that still gives Ohio State, some upward mobility, because I believe he's been to Tennessee and Georgia. He has not been to 3 of his top 5. I think Tennessee and Georgia 2 he's been to. So I think there's some upward mobility there for him, even with where they're at now, just because of the unknown of the visit. And Ohio State's historically done very well on visits. I mean, they really you get these kids from Georgia and Florida up on campus, the odds go up dramatically. But look, he's built a really good relationship with Greg Stajuara, and I know we've been critical of his recruiting at times, but he's done a good job on this one, and quite frankly, that's I think shouldn't be understated. I mean, if he's got the kid, if there's that good of a relationship with the O-line coach, I think that's a game changer for Ohio State, where it's not just one of the regional guys or Ryan Day, trying to carry the water. I think the fact that there's a good relationship there with Stud is not to be overlooked here. And I think if the visit goes well, if they don't botch the visit, and they very rarely have done that over the years, I think they can get him.
All right, and last one, someone you actually saw before the last time we talked, but I think I forgot to ask you about him, so I'm going to ask about again. And if you heard about him last time, that's okay. It's a 5-star kid. Everyone's going to want to hear about him again. But I'm pretty sure we haven't talked about him yet. Treyan Webb. He is a 5-star for 2023 from Jacksonville's Trinity Christian Academy. If that sounds familiar, that's the same school that produced Sean Wade and Tyreek Johnson, Marcus Crowley. Webb is listed as an athlete. So where does he actually project at the next level? And are the Buckeyes going to be able to pull another good player out of that pipeline?
It's interesting. I had someone tell me they think he could end up at Ohio State. Someone down in Jacksonville that said they thought he'd end up at Ohio State. The reasoning for that is he's very close to Marcus Crowley, and that's like a big brother situation. So, I think there's a few things to unpack there. Where is Marcus in the running back rotation here these next 18 months, and how happy is he in Columbus with the touches he's getting or not getting, as we'll find out in the next 18 months. I think that's going to be something to keep an eye on, because obviously if he's doing well here, that's gonna be a boost for Ohio State. If things aren't going well and some other guys are ahead of him on the depth chart and the pecking order, that maybe doesn't bode as well for Ohio State. And then again, the position, right now it looks like running back. There are schools who think he's a safety. He, could he play in the slot? Probably, but I think he would have been more suited for maybe the old Urban Meyer H position than maybe what they want out of the slot receivers under Ryan Day. And then, of course, like we just talked about, the Richard Young factor. I mean, could you get both of those guys? Would you take one before Richard Young made a decision? Well, how do you? So there's a lot of things to navigate there, but I think he's very interested in Ohio State, and that ultimately, coming up in June is going to be important. And then it's like I said, there's so many outside factors to this one right now that I think it's probably too early to get too excited, even though I think he very much likes Ohio State.
All right. And before I let you go, sometime between, we're going to do a little time traveling right now, sometime between when we're recording this and when this episode actually gets released a little later on this evening, you and Bill Green are going to wrap up your Scoop 100 series, you're with your final podcast, running down your top 100 players in the country. I have plugged this before. I will plug it again. Fantastic series, tons of great information. Every episode you hear about 10 kids in a little bit of depth. You learn more about them, how they are as players, where they might be looking at school. It's been a fantastic, fantastic series. How many of the top 10 names that people are going to hear tonight are people who Ohio State fans are going to, I think I know who number one is. I have a pretty good sense for who number one probably is, but we'll find out. We'll find out for sure. But how many names in that top 10 are names that Ohio State is at least kind of in on right now?
Yeah, I think off the top of my head here, I think like 4 or 5 of them are somewhat either in the class or could be or are being recruited. So I would say about half the list right now that we're about to release is going to be relevant in some way to Ohio State fans to varying degrees. Mm-hmm. But there will be no shortage of Ohio State talk on the episode, and we are excited. We are doing 6-star rankings, actually.
Oh my!
We're kind of building off the old joke from Bill that Lamarcus Joyner was a 6-star. So we have a very select group of 6 stars, and we'll be releasing those obviously at the very end of the list. So that's going to be interesting. I'm sure some people are going to laugh at it. Some people probably roll their eyes at it, but that's okay. We've talked about it, the last several months, and it's like, that I don't think most years that, I don't think the gap between like 25 and 50 is any, smaller than the gap between like 1 and 25. So I think just as you're dealing with a different caliber player at, maybe 25 overall versus 100 overall, I think you're generally dealing with a different caliber player in the top 3 or 4 players in the country than you are dealing with, in the mid 20s, early 30s. And a lot, they give them the same ranking. They're both 5 stars, but I don't know. For me, there's a difference between, a Jalen Ramsey and a Kendall Fuller or something like that. I mean, to me, there's generally a few guys at the top who are a little bit more special than the rest of the guys.
Well, that episode should be out by the time you're listening to this on Tuesday morning. But definitely go back, check out the entire series. It is a fantastic listen. You put it on 1.5 speed, you zip right through. You can go for a little quick short run, knock out an episode get in better shape. You learn a little more. It's a fantastic series. That is a Gives in the Bank podcast, but you can find that and all of our other great podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify. All you have to do is type in Buckeye Scoop and you'll find all of them. You can subscribe right there. Leave us a 5-star rating and review as well, which will help other folks find those shows. You can also find them on YouTube, youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. They're all free there. All of our podcasts, all of Marc's interviews with players on his trip, highlights of games, interviews with Ohio State players and coaches. It's all there. youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. Subscribe to that site, to that channel, and you will get notified every time we post a new video, which will make your life just a little bit better. We do what we can. All you have to do is subscribe. And finally, speaking of the only thing you have to do is subscribe is BuckeyeScoop.com. Fantastic team of insiders. Our Ask the Insiders board. We have been churning out great content. Bill Green just put out a really, really interesting update list on his, where guys are in the class, out of the class, maybe, probably, no. updating kind of where guys stand right now. That was great content on Monday. Nevada had a really, really interesting update from the strength and conditioning staff over the weekend. That was great. Really interesting. Which very promising true freshman is really, really, really impressing everyone? Well, you have to be a member of BuckeyeScoop.com to find out. So you can sign up at BuckeyeScoop.com today. You get a member, become a member, get our access to our fantastic team of insiders, that as the Insiders Board, and so many more benefits. And if you sign up before our first anniversary on June 4th, you get some special little added bonuses. But you got to sign up now before we turn 1 year old on June 1st or 4th. Sorry, June 4th. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We will talk to you tomorrow.